Hello, my presentation is Bridging the Gap, Teaching for Social Justice Through Storytelling of Immigrant Experiences. My name is Hong Li. I'm a teaching professor of Chinese at Emory University in the United States. First, some background information. In the US, anti-Chinese sentiments increased during the pandemic, resulting in considerable spike in overall violence and hatred towards Asian American individuals. According to a research published by the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University, the anti-Asian hate crimes increased by 339% across the United States in 2021 compared to the year before in 2020. This has created a growing attention to social justice in world language teaching and research, and it served as a call to amplify Asian voices and integrate social justice in world language education. The framework I've been using in my classroom is called Social Justice Standards, the Teaching Tolerance Anti-Bias Framework. This is a guide for teaching from teaching tolerance. It offers a set of standards and age-appropriate learning outcomes divided into 4 domains: identity, diversity, justice, and action. Different from some other guides that usually incorporate social justice into certain lessons or units of the curriculum, this guide encourages continued engagement throughout the curriculum. The 4 domains are identity, and the goal is to ensure students develop positive social identities while at the same time coming to an understanding of their identities as complex and multi-layered. Diversity, it supports students to develop a cultural competence that allows them to not only appreciate the many similarities and differences between individuals and social groups, but understand the value those offer our society as a whole. The 3rd domain is justice. It aims to teach students to recognize the relationship between individual and systemic acts of bias, injustice, and oppression, and the role power and privilege play in shaping how we experience the world. The last domain is activism. It aims to help students identify and dismantle their own role in supporting harmful beliefs and practices, to stand up for the rights of others and reach out to educate others on issues that are important to them. In the language classroom, according to Ditto, it provides an ideal context for entering critical dialogue and welcoming the discussion of social justice. Because learning a language helps students gain insights into different cultures, traditions, and perspectives. It helps break down stereotypes and foster mutual respect. Also, language skills enable individuals to engage with diverse communities, foster collaboration and collective action towards social justice goals. Nito went on to say that language classes should challenge, confront, and disrupt misconceptions, untruth, and stereotypes that leads to structural inequality and discrimination based on social and human differences, and to promote critical thinking and agency for social change. Here is the case I would like to share with you. In the fall of 2022, I taught Chinese 351, which is called Business Chinese. It is an advanced Chinese language course provide training in business context with emphasis on formal styles and business terminology. Upon completion of the course, students should be able to demonstrate comprehension of text on topics of China's changing macroeconomy and the current business practices. They should be able to speak and write about business-related topics using formal style vocabulary and business terminologies. They should be able to communicate with Chinese speakers and businesses in a linguistically competent and culturally appropriate manner. And lastly, they should learn to think critically about topics of community, equality, and social justice, be able to empathize with experiences and perspectives of others. My approach is to teach social justice through stories of immigrant experiences. This reminds me of what Dan Abrams had said, identity is a life story. The idea is that our sense of who we are, which is our identity, is shaped by the narrative we construct about our own lives. This narrative is the ongoing, evolving stories we tell about ourselves and to others about our experiences, values, beliefs, relationships, and our own personal growth. When I taught the course in fall 2022, I incorporated a semester-long project called Making Connections, Chinese Communities in Atlanta project. It centered around the exploration of the 4 domains of social justice education, which are, again, identity, diversity, justice, and activism. The project includes 3 phases. The first phase is preparation storytelling. The second phase includes exploration of Chinatown, and last phase is a group project. I will discuss the 3 phases in more detail in the coming slides. Phase 1, preparation and storytelling. It introduces the program called Community Building and the Social Change Fellowships Program at Emory University. The director of the program and student fellows came to our class to share their experiences, which is through a 10-week hands-on summer experience. They visited multiple immigrant communities, conducted site visits, group meetings, and they publicly presented their work. I also introduced students to story circles, which is one of the initiatives of our university. The storytelling circle has its own structure. So the circle begins with a designated speaker sharing stories about a particular topic. And then the audience is divided into smaller groups to tell their own stories related to the topic. And the discussion is led by the facilitator and structured in a way that encourages full and authentic participation in both listening and in the telling of the personal stories. Phase 1 includes a trip to Atlanta Chinatown, but before that, students were engaged in a research project exploring Chinatown history and the businesses there. During the visit, they had specific tasks. They visited a restaurant, a bookstore, a gift store, and a bakery, and they interacted with business owners, customers, and community members. Lastly, they tried to think about their ideas for the phase 3 of the project. Phase 3 is a group project. It integrated speaking, listening, reading, and writing practices. It involved this theme of social justice, equality, and identity. And there are several components. Students have to write an essay of about 1,500 Chinese characters. They conduct interviews of community members to learn about their stories, and they needed to present their stories to the class through a digital story. I want to share a couple of stories from the Chinese immigrant communities. One story is Benjamin, who is a second-generation immigrant from Taiwan, and he is the co-founder of a financial planning company in Atlanta. Benjamin's parents immigrated to the United States from Taiwan in late 1970s and opened a Chinese restaurant in Georgia. In 1985, however, his young father died in a tragic plane crash while skydiving. Without life insurance or financial planning, Benjamin's father left behind a single mother, 2 young children, and a struggling Chinese restaurant, and a lot of debts. Determined to survive in the face of tragedy, Benjamin's mother quit the restaurant business a few days after her husband's passing to start a financial planning practice so that what happened to her would not happen to anyone else. In 1998, Benjamin was admitted to Emory University's business school to pursue his BBA degree. In 2006, he added to his education by pursuing an MBA at Georgia State University. Soon after, in 2010, Benjamin and his mother co-founded GenFi, a new financial planning company. During the pandemic, the company moved entirely online, which enabled the company to profit. In 2020, their profit increased by 20 to 21%. And their best year actually was during the height of the pandemic in 2021. This is the digital story completed by the students. Joy's story, on the other hand, was quite different from Benjamin's. Joyce immigrated to the United States nearly 30 years ago. She did various labors, mostly in the Chinese restaurant over the years. And she became quite skillful at making Chinese noodles. In 2019, she purchased a Lanzhou ramen noodle from her former boss. For Joyce, opening her own noodle restaurant was a natural next step. She told the students, I hope that Chinese people will feel authentic and happy when they come here to eat the noodles I made. Less than a year later, however, the pandemic hit, and she had no choice but to close the restaurants from March to July in 2020. When she reopened again, she could only operate takeout business. Sales dropped by more than 80% amid the political narrative that blamed the Chinese people for the spread of the pandemic. At the time of the interview in fall 2022, Joy's businesses has recovered a great deal, but it was still below the pre-pandemic level. So why do I use immigrant stories to teach social justice? First, the stories highlighted historical and contemporary injustices Chinese immigrants have faced, and it amplified the voices of marginalized communities, allowing students to make connections to broader patterns of systemic inequality that affected marginalized communities. Secondly, those stories fostered empathy and connection. By hearing the struggles and the successes of Chinese immigrants, students developed a deeper emotional connection to issues such as racism, xenophobia, and cultural resilience. Third, the stories can help promote critical thinking, inspire hope, and build resilience. Fourth, the stories challenge the stereotypes about model minority myths, which presents Asian Americans, particularly Chinese Americans, as uniformly successful and upwardly mobile. There are many stories of struggle which help students to understand the diversity in Chinese American experiences. Lastly, the stories incorporated and facilitated language learning and cultural awareness in a meaningful and authentic way because students listened to Chinese immigrants tell their stories in the native language, and they have to re-listen and retell the stories. So in the process, their listening comprehension has increased. And by writing about their stories and also present their stories to the community members and their classmates, their speaking and writing Chinese proficiency has also experienced dramatic increase. Here are my references. And thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Thank you.